In this video, we're going to talk about numerical description of data. So after we have collected and organized our data, it is time now for us to look into analyzing what do the data give us. Before we even go to different inferences and conclusions about our data, first we have to give a description of what our data are telling us. And we have two ways of describing our data: through numerical methods, like what we're going to talk about, and the other one would be about the different visual ways of describing our data. Before we go into describing our data, let us take note first of the following terms that we see. So the first two terms that we see on the screen is census and survey. These two talk about from where we gather data. So if we're gathering data from the entire population, then it is said that we are doing a census because we're taking data from the entire population. Now, if we're taking data from a sample, then we are doing a survey. So that means if we are talking about we're gathering data from the entire population, like for example, whenever someone visits your house and asks how many people are there, what's the job of the head of the household and all that, then that is a census. If we're only going to take data from a subset or from a sample of the population, then we call it a survey. The other two terms that you see there are parameter and statistic. These are actually referring to the values that we are actually getting when we're conducting either a census or a survey. So, if we're conducting a census, that means the data is from the population. Hence, that data will be called a parameter because the data or the value, again, comes from the population. However, if the data that we got is from the sample, then we call it a statistic. So again, if the data that we've gathered is from the population, then we call it a parameter. And if we have data that we've got from the sample, then we call it a statistic. Now, for numerically describing our data, we have different measures, but we're only going to talk about three basic measures: the measures of central tendency, or the measure of center, the measure of spread, variability, and dispersion, and the measures of relative position. So these three measures are what we're going to focus for numerically describing our data.